This is Mark Letestu, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Okay, well, welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast. Tonight I'm joined by Mark Letestu, Elk Point's Mark Letestu, and I appreciate you first off joining me.
Yeah, no, this is, again, new experience for me, first-time podcaster, so I'm excited to see where this goes.
Well, I thought it was cool today you were nominated for the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy. I assume that's quite the honor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not up for many NHL awards, so this one will probably be the only one. So it is a cool honor. It sucks that it seems like you got to go through something, something negative to get nominated. But that being said, I've stuck around long enough to be nominated, and I think that's when they talk about the dedication, the perseverance, and some of the details of the award. I think I fit that, and the longevity of my career probably fits that too. I think a lot of people took the under on my career, so I think I'm doing all right. So to get this award's pretty cool.
Well, that's what makes your story so interesting, is because you are you got some battle scars on how you got there and how you've stuck there, and I think that was what makes a great story.
Yeah, I think it's certainly the road less traveled, and I think if you go more locally, Alberta, when you start talking junior B, you know, when you're from the Lloydminsters and the Bonnyvilles and Elk Points, you understand what that league is. When you're playing in the NHL and people say tier 2, they kind of look at you funny, like what's that league? Where's Bonnyville? But you tell them there's a step under that. You're playing in St. Paul, playing junior B. It's a long road. It's fun. It's a good story to tell and to explain to the guys exactly where that is and what it entails and the bus rides and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun to have that as kind of my backstory.
Well, let's start there then. Why don't you tell the listeners I was listening to an interview of you today and you were talking about Lindbergh, and the lady interviewing, I damn near laughed my ass off because she's just kind of looking at you, dazed, like, what is that or where is that? And I mean, everybody in this community knows exactly where that is. But what was early life like? I heard you talk about your dad having an outdoor rink and you playing at the Lindbergh arena, I assume. That's one for sure I'd never played at. But maybe the early days, Mark, just what it took at the beginning.
Yeah, well, and I'm from Elk Point, but I'm not born there. I moved to Elk Point when I was probably 12 years old. So I'm a Saskatchewan kid, born in Saskatoon, and Dad's in the oil field, always has been. So he's bounced us around quite a bit, and Elk Point just seemed to be our sticking point. So, the Lindbergh ice rink. You're looking for any kind of ice. We got one rink in Elk Point. It's full. Right from after school till the later hours of the night, and that's it's I think that the story was about outdoor experiences. Probably going into the Heritage game, they want to talk about your outdoor experiences and what you've done and growing up. And Lindbergh was just always again, the salt plants there. It's this town, no more than 25 people live there. It's basically propped up by the salt plant and the people that commute in and out. But it's you just played all night, and there was this one non-heated shack. You put your skates on and you walk through the snow and gravel and you pick up nicks, but it didn't matter because the ice was terrible. You played with tennis balls. It was just fun. And I feel like that's where you probably develop some of the skills, hockey, hand-eye, and then it gets dark. You got to pull the trucks up to get the lights on. So you just played all night, and there were so many injuries, guys taking the ball they didn't see coming. You get the frozen tennis ball in the head or in the leg, or it was just a lot of fun. I'm not sure if it's still there. I hope it is. It'd be a cool thing to go back and play on again.
Do you ever miss those days? Like I hear you talk about that. Those days as a kid when you used to, get to just go and skate, and you had energy for days, and you didn't feel the cold, or you swear you didn't feel the cold. Do you ever go, have a look back at that time and go, man, be fun to go back there for a day?
I miss it. Now that I have kids of my own, my oldest boy is turning 9 here in a month, and then I got another boy that's 7. You try and have that for them. It's not the same, or it doesn't feel the same as a dad going to some of the outdoor rinks where the dressing rooms are heated and they're pretty nice, better locker rooms than we ever had. Like brand new nets out there. So it's not the same where you really felt like you were roughing it and looking back on it, making memories. So you try to do that for your kids, but again, it's just not the same. You want them to experience that, because I can even tell the way you talk about it. You kind of romanticize about the past and those times. I mean, that no greater fun had.
Well, I come from Helmond, so I remember the old Silver Dome. Dad used to go down there as a community. You'd flood the rink because it was natural ice. And while he flooded, the rule was you could skate until the water got to you. So he would take his time going back and forth with the hose, and we'd go skating. And sometimes I'd be the only one down there, and you'd just skate around with a puck. We had no nets on the ice because when he didn't want to move a net back and forth, so you just skate around and put a boot out or whatever else, and that's what you did. And I look back at those times, and those were like awesome times. I mean, you still get to have those types of fun, but now you're right. Like the outdoor rinks got brand new nets, got brand new. And don't get me wrong, as a kid, I would have loved a brand new net. But I think back then, you were just happy to get on the ice. And now, I mean, COVID slowed everything down. So the ice has come out of a lot of the rinks here, but now kids in this area particularly, and I know that goes further than just here, have ice in year round at disposal, and that wasn't the thing back then. So I think there was, with it being natural ice, specifically in Hillmond, when it got cold, you knew it was getting close. And I remember as kids, we had a dugout on the bottom of the hill where we lived, and you'd throw a puck out and hear that sound, which any hockey player can just envision. Fantastic. And then you kind of like take a step to see, has the ice froze yet? And then crackle. Okay, no, we got to wait. Okay, we'll wait. And you go every day like that.
Yeah, you send your little brother out for the test suit. He's hanging onto the stick. If it cracks, you got to pull him in quick, or else you get it. No, but those are, in like my experience with the rink too. When it turned a little bit warm, usually March, that ice came out. So the last couple of days before that ice came out, they basically opened up the rink, and they'd have the kids play these huge long games that lasted all day. And you just went out there with your stick and puck, and it seemed like nobody ever got hurt. But you just enjoyed it. You played it all day, and it was a lot of fun for everybody involved, no matter the skill level, no matter who you are.
Yeah, those were good days. It's interesting now with liability insurance and all that, how that's changed the way that is, because it seems like you can't step on a piece of ice without having to sign a waiver or sign this or sign that. And you think back to, and I'm dating myself, yourself, is back when we were that age, there was none of that. It was let the kids play, get out on the ice and go skating. And I got 3 older brothers. We talk all the time, and an older sister. We talk all the time about the shenanigans that happen on the ice and some of the injuries that came, and Dad's rule that we could play until somebody was either bleeding or crying, and then it was time to go home. So nobody cried, and you got to stay at the rink a really long time.
Yeah, no, I remember going in there. Our schedule's on a chalkboard. We come in to the rink, and on the right-hand side, you've been there, there's a chalkboard, and there would be 2 hours devoted to it would just say shinny. You didn't have to sign up. You just went out and played. And now in Columbus, Ohio here, it's a little different, but there's sign-up sheets for that kind of stuff, and it fills up at 10. 10 people on the ice at a time, and you're only allowed 2 parents. And if you don't get online at time to sign up in time, you don't get to skate. And that's just, it's just changed, where I remember there just being a block from 4 till 5. It was either public skating or shinny, and that just meant you could have your stick and your puck, or you couldn't. And you just went out freely.
Did you ever go and skate in between your dad's rec game periods?
Dad didn't play.
Didn't play?
No, I had to ref. For like $20, and you want to talk about beer league guys getting upset calling icings and offsides, and it was the worst $20 I think I ever earned. It was terrible. So Dad stopped playing, I stopped reffing, and then beer league hockey, I stay out of it now. It's for my brother.
Can you sympathize with refs then when you've been through it like that?
I reffed as a kid growing up, so I totally sympathize with them. And as a rule to myself, I don't yell at them. I don't disagree with them. They got the toughest job. I mean, that's the most thankless job in our sport. Whether it's the guys on the ice, the coaches, or people at home screaming at TV, they're never right, and they're never on anybody's team. So I just, as a rule, I take care of those guys as much as I can. Maybe that's why face-off percentage has been so high.
What did you do to become such a good, was that just a God-given talent, being talented in the face-off, Don?
It's survival. You're a undersized, chubby kid out of university with no draft pedigree. You got to find something you're good at to stay in the league. So for me, I mean, I'm right-handed. At the time in the Pittsburgh system, they were all left-handed. Everybody, Malkin, Stahl, Crosby. Craig Adams was the only right-handed centerman. He was the fourth liner. And they just said to me, like, if you want to be here or at least get your foot in the door, you work on your faceoffs. We got used for a right-handed centerman. And, ever since then, you work on the craft, and I mean, you better be good at it. You're not good at it, they're going to find somebody to replace you. So for me, it was about survival. That was my way in, and then you try and expand upon it with every opportunity you get.
That's an interesting, them telling you that and you taking it for what it's worth. I've had different guys on here before where they've been told things, and for one reason or another, they don't accept what has been told to them. And they don't have, that's why I find it interesting, your career, you find a way. And being told right off the hop, if you work on this, we got a spot for you. Well, you become a damn good centerman at winning draws, at becoming a penalty killer.
Yeah, well, I've always thought it's in their best interest to tell me what I need to do to be there. There's a scout somewhere, there's a GM somewhere that's probably stuck his neck out for me at some point. If I'm a college free agent and they give me the most they could at the time, they call it a cap deal. Somebody had probably pounded the table or stuck their neck out for me. They're going to try and give me the tools to succeed. Nobody's trying to screw me over, or nobody's trying to make sure that they stick it to me or something. They want me in the NHL. It looks good on their scouts. It looks good on them as a management. It looks good on them as coaches, as developers. So when they give you an advantage or an insight into what they're looking for, a skill that might help you advance your career, I think as a professional, you have to take it seriously. And it's simple. It wasn't like they're asking me to fight, or really do something or change something about myself. They just wanted me to really focus on a specific skill. Whether it was focus or work at it, I think it got me my foot in the door. And I think it's probably why I'm still around. It's a skill that's, kept me useful.
Well, I just think back to Edmonton. We couldn't, and I say we, that's the fan in me. We couldn't win a draw to save our lives. And I remember when they signed you, we're like, well, at least we got somebody who can come in and win a draw, right? Like that's exciting. We got somebody who can play a certain role. And he did very good. The year you guys went to the playoffs, and you probably get asked about this all the time when you come back and talk to oil country, because in fairness, the Oilers haven't made the playoffs a whole heck of a lot, and you got to experience one of those years you did. What was that like, going to the playoffs in Edmonton, which is essentially your hometown, after 11-year hiatus from them being in it previous?
Well, in full disclosure, not an Oilers fan growing up.
Really?
Yeah.
Who are you? Who?
Montreal. Dad's Saskatoon born. I know. It was tough growing up. Okay, in Northern Alberta as a Habs fan, everybody loves the Oilers. And I've told the story. My father-in-law he's a diehard Oilers fan. He's an Oilers season ticket holder. And I've told the story about how in the 80s he wouldn't drive through the city of Calgary. He hated the Flames so much. So if he had to get to the south side of Calgary, there was no ring road either. He would just drive around the city. He hated them so much. So that's what kind of Oiler family I married into. So I knew exactly what making the playoffs meant to them and my buddies and my friends. There's names for it. They call it Decade of Darkness or whatever it was.
There's many names.
Many, yeah.
And I have lots of Flames fans who are buddies of mine who love to remind me of it.
Yeah, but I mean, there will not be a moment in my career that'll rival Game 1. And that you could just tell, and it has nothing to do with the game because I'm pretty sure we lost, but just coming out for warm-up, you could tell there was a decade of pent-up emotion that people are just ready to cheer. They're just ready to be back in the playoffs, where they belong, to be honest. I mean, you got that many Stanley Cup banners, you belong there. You should be in that conversation. So to come out for warm-up and to hear the ovation of it, and then, them singing the anthem, something I've seen on TV countless times. That first game, that was amazing for me. And then to play as well as I did in that stretch, it means a lot, yeah.
Speaking of the first game, because as fans, we all knew they were going to try and do something with the anthem, but we weren't 100% sure what they were going to do. And then, of course, Robert Clark singing and letting the fans do it again. As a player, was that did you see that coming? What did that feel like?
I hoped it was coming. Because that's what I remember Edmonton for, and I hear fans talk about Vancouver started it, but to me, that's an Edmonton thing. Edmonton singing the anthem, both anthems. So I hoped that they would turn it over to the crowd. They did it in a pretty poetic way, putting Robert in the crowd with them and starting it and then handing it over. And then later Brett Kissel, as the playoffs went on, he kind of did the same thing of passing it on to the fans, but I hoped for it. I remember, so my wife took me, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, took me to the Stanley Cup final game where Dwayne Rolison got hurt. So I was at that game. So she was really trying to woo me, took me to an NHL final game, sealed the deal apparently. But I remember being at that game and the atmosphere to it, and they're coming out to pump it by the Black Eyed Peas, and the whole Get Electric. I was there for that, so that was really cool as a fan. And to be there for the playoffs themselves was something else.
You're almost giving me chills talking about 06. Old Rolly the goalie in net and the silver tassels swinging in the air.
Yeah, this is the best time. It was the best time. I realized I feel for Ty Conklin, who had to come into that situation. But it was, what can you do now? History.
That's right. How hard has this season been? I want to go back to your junior days and everything, but I didn't realize, and it's fun when you get a new guest come on, you get to do a little bit of research, and you're not playing for Edmonton now and being in the Winnipeg system. This myocarditis, is that what it is?
Yeah, myocarditis. That's
for the people probably in Elk Point, they know all about it, but for everybody else, myocarditis is a virus that attacks the heart, and you've been out now for a chunk of time.
Yeah, but myocarditis is not actually a virus.
Okay.
So myocarditis is the result of a virus. So at some point I got sick. Could have been strep, could have been flu, could have been really anything. I can't really pinpoint it, neither can doctors. But the virus attacks the walls of your heart and causes inflammation. And the inflammation doesn't allow the heart to pump out as much as it should, and it causes a backlog of blood in the heart. So if you get, higher levels of stress for a really long period of time, you could, with the backlog, go into cardiac arrest. So that's where that comes. And really the only way to flush the inflammation out of your heart is to give it a rest. It's different than, any other rehab where maybe you're using massage or stim, or you're, using exercises and working it to get it out. But every time you stress your heart, the inflammation it just won't go away. So that was the reason for 6 months shutdown. You got to take 6 months off, low heart rate, and try and let your body just heal itself.
Did you feel like shit? Like, do you feel bad?
No, I felt great. Now in hindsight, now getting back into the gym now, I feel a difference. I'm able to push weight and push my cardio harder than I was able to last summer, just judging purely by numbers that we collect. So there's a difference there. But at the time, I had no symptoms, nothing. And the only reason we caught it is the preseason screening. So they put us through, everybody goes through an EKG, which checks the rhythm of your heart, and mine came back irregular. So I went for an echocardiogram, which is literally the station next to it. That was a little bit irregular, but nothing definitive. So they decided to send me for an MRI, and I got those MRI results, which again, the doctors in Winnipeg locally were unsure. So they sent a second opinion off to the Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis, and they are the people that decide, it's probably myocarditis. We should shut them down and bring them here to run our own tests. And that's when I went up there and got more tests. But in the meantime, I played 13 games, 6 exhibitions, 7 regular season, and I guess dodged a bit of a bullet.
So then you're thankful they caught it, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. But 6 months, that's a death sentence on your year, especially from, I spent the whole year in the American League, basically the year before. So this was my chance to kind of get back in the league, maybe reestablish myself. When that gets taken from you, it sucks. It's terrible for 24, 48 hours, but as athletes, you get over it, you move on. But that initial call, that was as devastating as an injury I've had so far.
Yeah, well, and for it to be, no, it's not like you broke your leg or, got a really bad concussion. Not that a concussion is easy to swallow either, but for something like that where you just gotta, like, is there activities you can do to help strengthen it or get over it? Or is it just you need to be away from stress?
Yeah, a lot of Netflix, a lot of sitting around, a lot of nothing. Just honestly, like that was the worst part is, what they told me. You can't go beyond a conversation level of workout. You just got to wait. You just got to be patient with it. So that's what we did. We're patient with it.
So what did you do in that time then?
Well, honestly, the best part of it is the Jets, and I've been singing their praises the last couple of days with some of the media I've done around the Masterton Award, but they sent me home right away. My wife and family stayed in Ohio. They're old enough now that it's fair to them to have them put some roots down. So I was going to Winnipeg on a solo mission, and when I got the diagnosis and the time frame, they said go home. We don't need you to be here. There's nothing we can do for you, and we don't think you're a bad guy if you're not around every day. We know what you're about. Go home and be with your family. And that was the best thing for me, was just to get me out of there, where every day I would have been just going to the rink thinking about, myself and maybe pouting or being frustrated. But coming back here and fire me back into the routine of, pickups from school, getting lunches ready, going to hockey practice, helping out with that. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. It's not fair to the kids or the wife or anything like that. You take up a new role, and that was different for me in the winter, being home and being present, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, you miss being a hockey player. You miss being at the rink, and if anything, the time away made me hungry to come back and give it a shot.
Now that hockey is coming back, in quotations, as the phases start to come out and we kind of figure out a little bit more, you might be in a good spot because everybody else has had to sit around now for a couple months, right? And you guys know you're playing the Flames in the first round, so your father-in-law will love that.
Well, at least the internal playing field's level in my mind. Paul Maurice, who's been awesome, he was never going to put me back in the lineup. Coming back off of, a 6-month layoff, and they're in the heat of a playoff race. it's honestly, it's not fair to the guys that work so hard to get there. And I'm kind of an unproven commodity at that point. Like if he puts me out there and I get an extra long shift, so you're going to have to come drag me off. So I understood it then. I was going there to be a cheerleader and be, the best teammate possible. And, God forbid you get 4 or 5 injuries, you got to fire me back in there. With all this shutdown now, I mean, we're all in the same situation. We've all been sitting around. So, if I can get my conditioning level to the level of some of the guys now that I'm sitting around, I see no reason why I can't get back in there.
That'd be exciting. What do you think? And you've probably been asked this a bazillion times, but I think as all fans, we're all sitting there going like, Flames Jets, or Oilers Hawks. Like now that's some fun, right? Like, ooh, first round, no fans in the building. Well, that's going to be weird. Like as players, I mean, you've been to beer league games with no fans in the stands. It can get heated. And with best of 5 to start it off, I think it'll be heated. I don't think it's going to just be like rec hockey. It'll be fired up, but it will be weird playing in a city that isn't your city with no fans in the stands.
Do you like the matchups?
Do I like the matchups?
Not necessarily the teams per se, but just the idea of not playing in the division anymore.
Oh, well, this is a interesting topic because I don't know. I'm always a little bit crazy on this topic. I think for 1 year, I'm not crazy about hockey starting in the middle of summer. You come from this area. This area, we're happy to have hockey done in June. I think most people would like it done in May. And then you can go enjoy your summer because in Canada, specifically in Alberta, Saskatchewan, we get what? 3 months of summer if we're lucky. And so I would prefer it to be played faster. So not 5-7-7-7. I think this season, no matter what you do, is always going to have an asterisk by it. So teams are getting in that shouldn't be getting in. The top seed, everybody's all upset because they're playing a round robin. And whether Boston should be first or whatever, it's they're doing the best they can. As far as matchups go, I would like something more of like a World Junior style, a March Madness style, that in a 3-week period, instead of the grind, it's a tournament style because you got to get the games in. And you get through it, and the asterisk is always there, and maybe you have a best of 7 for the finals, and so be it. That's my take on it. I don't know. What is your thoughts on the matchups?
Well, I know originally the idea behind the way they were doing playoffs was to get rivalries going.
Right.
The Montreal would play Toronto every other year, and you'd get this rivalry going. And I don't get the sense that happened. Like I don't feel like there's a huge rivalry really anywhere that's been built up in the playoffs. Whereas I preferred the 1-8 because I remember growing up, for whatever reason, it was Edmonton, Dallas.
I was just going to say the last one for the Oilers was Dallas every bloody year.
And there's no geographic, there's nothing to it. It's just they played each other all the time. And I mean, you remember it, I remember it. Those were great. I remember Todd Marchand scored the goal.
Yeah.
And we all went outside and played street hockey and tried to go low blocker on the guy. Like we wanted to score the overtime winner, just
on
like
Andy
that.
Moog.
Yeah. So when I see Jets Flames, I get excited about that. I think you may never see this series ever again in your lifetime if you're going to keep the current playoff format, because both those teams got to make it to the conference finals. So I think that the uniqueness of this year could be exciting. And I think it's a shame you don't get to see it more often, or at least the possibility of it happen more often. But to get back to what you're talking about, an empty rink, I think the amount of time I spend on the bench, I'm gonna notice it. Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, those guys, they're not gonna notice anything. It's just gonna be hockey. When you're out there, there's nothing. But when me and Gabriel Bork are
except when they frickin' score a goal and there's not a cheer in the barn. Scheifele goes top shelf, and it's gonna be like, yay.
Yeah, you're gonna hear those weird man screams of. It's just that part's gonna be weird. But I think when the Stanley Cup's on the line and I think the intensity of the game will still be there. The fans, we're going to miss that. That part of playoff hockey is going to be missed, and it's a shame, but it's a necessary shame at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. To go back to the Jets, this is the lovely thing about podcasting. We don't need to go anywhere off a topic. Going back to Jets Flames, I think it'll be awesome because you watch, they've had the vintage hockey games going on, so you get to see like the Jets Oilers, the Jets Flames, the yada yada yada. That happens. In the current format, it's supposed to spur on the Flames and Oilers meeting at some point, right? But they got to get in the playoffs, and they got to get in the playoffs consistently to grow that, for lack of a better word, hatred among teams, right? The teams that I see that have some playoff animosity in the last 10 years would be Washington, Pittsburgh. They played each other a lot. And Boston, Toronto. Those two on the East Coast, they just seem to meet each other all the time. And there could probably be some said for the West, but around us specifically, like Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, you wish they were in the same division because just in population-wise, there's a lot of animosity when it comes to those specific regions. And whether you're talking CFL, right, that kind of carries over into hockey. And so I could see, this being one of those years where you may never get it back. And that's why I always suggest, I don't know if listeners absolutely hate the idea of a World Junior style tournament, but you could have that or a March. Imagine a 1-game winner goes on. Like, that'd be cool for a year just to try it out. And if it sucks, it's always going to have an asterisk beside it anyways.
Yeah, I think the asterisk part, I think that's why the 7-game series was pushed through. I think the idea of winning 16 playoff games earns you the Stanley Cup. I think that's the reason for it, because I think it would really, really come under scrutiny if it was a 1-game. You win 4 games and you win the Stanley Cup. That would be a beer league dream, right? Everybody be like, let's put my team in. I got a chance. Everybody's like, I get Chicago in the first round. We got a chance. We only got to win 3 more after that. So I
so
get where that.
You hate the idea then. And I should point out, there's ways to, no, screw it. I'm sticking to my guns. I would gladly take that for a year. I think that'd be exciting as all hell. NFL style, winner take all the marbles on the table. Because you're never going to get another opportunity like this, or hopefully we never see another opportunity like this, right? I'd be the first to say there's nothing better in sports, all of sports, than the first round of playoffs. And the parity in the league is bar none. I mean, what other league can you walk into the first round, be the low seed, and upset the top seed? It happens almost every year in the NHL. It's fantastic. And the opening round, just game after game after game, is a hockey player's dream. It's so much fun to watch. Just this year in the middle of summer, I'm struggling. The Oilers are in. Believe me, I'm going to be watching.
I think we're at a fan-player disagreement here, because I know if I get to raise the Stanley Cup at some point, if I get to watch most of my teammates play the playoffs and you win, you want to be able to raise the Stanley Cup and feel like you earned it. And you want to feel like when you take it to your hometown for that day that you earned it. People aren't, snickering or, you want to feel like you earned it. And I think that's where it comes from. But absolutely.
Look at these bums. They only won 4 games. They got the Stanley Cup. Just pull their names off there already.
Yeah. So I see what you're saying, because I would think that would be as exciting as possible. You get basically Game 7 every time out.
That's right.
And you're throwing out the regular season, which, Rod Brindamore has his way. He'd be grumpy with us, but we're throwing out the regular season anyways. 1-game playoff, yeah, sure, it'd be fun, but it's a lot of work. 3 weeks of training camp for 1 game. I wouldn't be too thrilled about it.
How excited are you for a best of 5 though? Just like the kind of the almost wild card format of win 3 and you're in the playoffs, or you're in the dance.
I'm not that excited about it. I don't know, would we have been in? Were we the 8 seed or was Calgary the 8 seed? If we were in, I would have just liked to have played the playoffs. I understand why they did it this way. But 5 games, it's weird, this home ice, like the top teams playing their round robin to determine seeding. Well, there's no home ice advantage. We're all playing a neutral site. So I'm not sure what advantage. Maybe you get last change. Maybe that's what they're playing for, the 1 to 4. But I really want to see how this all shakes out. The 5-game series is shorter. I've done it, in the minors. The first round, you play best of 5. So there's changes to it, but I wish it was shorter. But that's me. They want. There's a TV deal here.
Wow.
And,
money talks. At the end of the day, I think anyone, players, fans, coach, GMs, get it. Like, at the end of the day, it's money, and you got games to play, and regardless, the Oilers go to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. I guess I'm watching hockey, through my summer, and the wife is going to be extremely pissed, but that's all right.
This would be a lot of unhappy households or happy households.
Or happy households.
Way you look at it.
I want to talk about the AJHL for a little bit. I know you played for the Bonnyville Pontiacs way back when. Just kind of a little bit on your time in the junior A, and just I listened to an interview you had, or maybe kind of a synopsis of your career, and they talked about how you deferred going to school for a year, and I found that very, very interesting, and I thought maybe we could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so it would have been my 19-year-old year. Western Michigan had offered me a scholarship, and I was excited. I was pumped to go, but I didn't really have any grand scheme. I didn't envision myself playing in the NHL. I was going to school to play hockey, get a degree. They were going to pay me to get a degree, and I was more than happy to do that. So I was really in no hurry. They gave me the option. And my brother was actually going to play with me in Bonnyville. So I was like, well, my brother and I were 2 years apart. We never got to play together. So why not stick around? And we had some pretty good teams in Bonnyville. We couldn't really get over the hump. We always lost to Fort Mac. We were always really talented, and everybody was coming back. So I was in no hurry. I thought, what the heck? And I got some pretty cool experience. I got to play in the Viking Cup. I don't know if they still do that tournament. That might have been
they do not
one.
do the Viking Cup anymore.
Yeah, so that was really cool for me, just an experience, and then I had the year I should have had. I think you look at the numbers and it's like, I think I had 50 and 55 that year. But, if we're tracking a progression, I think I had 86 the year before for points.
Yep.
I'm 20 years old. I'm a man at that point. And I've spent a lot of time in that league, and I had a really good team around me. I put up the numbers I should have put up. I don't think anybody looks at those, and that they're big numbers, but it's not, it wasn't mind blowing. So I had a lot of fun with it that way. I knew I was going to do well. I knew the team would do well. We couldn't get over the hump. Couldn't beat Fort Mac again. So it turned out to be a little bit foolish, but I enjoyed playing with my brother.
Well, that's a year you'll never, that'll never happen again, right? Unless you come back and play for Elk Point in the old senior league, which at that point, I guess I'm going to have to try and hip check you at least once.
I don't move around too quick if you don't know, so you might be able to get that off on me.
I don't move around too quick anymore either, so. What was it like playing with your brother for a year? Like, I mean, you just, so many people are like, bang, I got to get to the next level. Got to get here. I'm going to go boom, boom, boom. You got a Division I scholarship, and you're like, yeah, I'll just, I'm in no rush. Like, that's very interesting. To play with your brother is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was the best. I mean, and it's not like we played on a line or anything like that, but I think just to have that experience together, to be on the bus, and he's in his rookie year, and I'm the 20-year-old. So I get to kind of make fun of him at the rookie party, and just I get to be there to help them with those experiences. So that it was awesome. And my mom and dad, who, they come to everything. They come to every game. So for them to come and see us play together, I think was a treat for them. It was the best time. And I look back at that team, the talent we had and the players and people that went on from there. It was totally worth it to come back.
Well, and Bonnyville from Elk Point, I mean, your parents could make every game. That's like what, half an hour?
20 minutes. So it was routine for me to go home, for a weekend. We get a day off or something. I'd go home, see mom and dad, play with the dog.
Did you stay at Billets then?
Yeah. No, I stayed in the coach's house. So I was in his basement for 3 years. 3 different houses, 3 years. Yeah.
3 different houses in 3 years.
Yeah, they like moved around a lot, I guess. Me and Jean-Marc Baudouin, we lived together for 3 years in the coach's house in 3 different houses.
No kidding.
House 2 was the best. We had the basement to ourselves.
Well, the year you're talking about where you went back, I mean, 50, 55, 105, that was good enough to lead the league in scoring. That was good enough to get the nod for the MVP of the league. So, you say those were what you should have put up, but those are still pretty good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do take a lot of pride in those numbers, and trying not to come off too, overly full of myself. But as a 20-year-old in that league, if I thought that I was coming back to dominate, or if Western Michigan was leaving me there to develop and dominate, that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we had the talent. I mean, we had 3 guys on that team playing the NHL. Shannon was a gold medalist. We get the world long drive champion on that team. Like we had some pretty special people. And when you surround yourself with good players in that league at that time, you're going to put up some numbers.
What about Western Michigan then? What was that like hopping there as you would have been 21 then when you first started playing there?
Yeah, I was old enough to drink as a freshman. I had 3 years on everybody else in my class. I was older than one of the seniors, so I was coming in older. But that Western Michigan, the experience there was totally unexpected. I didn't expect to have success like that right away. They just kept putting me in situations, and I kept delivering. I think I had a hat trick in my 5th game in Nebraska, Omaha, and that's kind of where the light bulb went off. Like, I can do this. I can play here. I belong. And it just snowballed. You get a little bit of momentum and confidence, and it just took off. And I ended up leading the nation in freshman scoring. And 9 months after I'm done playing in Bonnyville, I got a 2-year contract to play with the Penguins. So it happened so fast that I really didn't have time to really sit down and think about it.
Well, what is your brain doing? Like, how does a contract come? They just gave you a call one day?
Yeah, my agent, he's an advisor at the time. You got to be careful with those words, but he's an advisor. And as the season ends, because I always give him a hard time. I tell him, you didn't think you were actually going to make money on me. Like there's no way. But sure enough, after the season ended, he called me, said, "Hey, we've got some interest. We got a few teams that are talking about you. Do you think you'd leave school? You're a 21-year-old freshman. I mean, if you don't leave school then, it could be too late. You never know when it passes you by." So I said, yeah, if somebody's serious about it, let's give this a talk. So we went back and forth a couple of days, and it came down to Colorado and Pittsburgh. And honestly, the only real reason that I went to Pittsburgh is Ray Shiro had personally called me. I was sitting in the cafeteria at the dorms, and he had called me, and it was just he seemed like a normal, decent person. Just talked to me like I was, he didn't try to tell me I was going to play with Crosby or with Malkin or give me these stories of grandeur that I was going to, do this and that. He was just, they really wanted to add me to a really good group of centermen they had. And maybe one day I could work my way there. But just him taking the time to call me, that was good enough for me.
Did you get a signing bonus out of that?
Yeah, I got as much as I could get.
What did you
It
do with
wasn't.
your? It's one of my favorite questions to ask. What did you do with your signing bonus?
I bought a truck, like a Tahoe, but other than that, that stuff went away. That went to a bank account somewhere where I'd never be able to touch it again.
You didn't trust yourself.
Not that I didn't trust myself. I don't. My mom's been she's been like a sales clerk her whole life. She's worked at Home Hardware and PV Mart and Fields. And Dad's been a truck driver. We've never had that kind of a check come. So, right away they said, listen, you got a real opportunity to get ahead. Don't be an idiot. So I tried not to be an idiot.
How good did it feel though to walk in and pay cash for a brand new truck?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never bought anything in my life. So yeah, of course it feels good to do that. Yeah.
That year you signed with them, you head to Wilkes-Barre for AHL playoffs or regular season playoffs, I believe.
Yeah, no, I finished 3 games in the regular season. And then finished the playoffs. I think we lost out to Hershey in that time. But that when I got there was the first time I knew that I was in over my head. It just happened too fast. You go from, like I said, 9 months from being, kind of the guy in the league, and you realize that everybody in the American League is the best player on their team, and they all have the same kind of success story as you up until that point. And everybody's better than you. At that point, everybody was better than me. It felt like they were faster, they were smarter, they were bigger. I remember my first game. I'm playing center against Hartford, and Dale Purinton's on the blue line. He looks like the Undertaker with Mark Messier's helmet on. Like we are not like. If I go near him, I'm gonna die. So it was. I didn't feel myself like I belonged. But it was really good to go and see that before I came to training camp the next year.
So okay, so you go there, you play a handful of games, you come back, and you're like, holy crap. What did you do then to boost your confidence back up in preparing for that first year? Because I mean, you just basically said, I don't belong. So you got to fix that in an awful hurry because you're going right back and you're going into the fire and you got to find a way to find that confidence to stick.
Well, and I didn't approach it right. Again, I'm 20, maybe 21 at the time, 22. I really didn't start really training for hockey till I was 22 years old. Like even going to college, lift weights every now and again, go for a run, but I didn't really train for hockey. So coming back from my little stint with Wilkes-Barre, feeling pretty good about myself. I'm still on an NHL contract. I got 2 years, and I didn't train the way I should have coming into that first year. And I don't think it's from being arrogant, or it just wasn't knowing. I never lifted weights. I never really trained for hockey. So I remember I went once a week or twice a week to this guy out in St. Paul, Brad Blackburn, awesome, great guy, Texan. He's got some weights in his gym, and I'd come in once a week. I'd do upper body lifts, and I'd lift as much as I could for as many reps as I could. And then a week from that day, I'd come back and I'd see if I could do it either 1 rep more or I'd up the weight. And we do that on a Monday, and say Wednesday we do lower body, and we do the similar thing. But Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no working out. So I went back to Pittsburgh thinking this was how you train, because I don't know. I didn't grow up around people that were into hockey training. Like these skills coaches 4-year-olds got now. I just played. So I went back, and I was terribly out of shape when I got to camp. Couldn't keep up. And it affected my game there. I ended up in the coast for the first month of my pro career, and really had to start and work my way back through and gain some trust. And had some really difficult conversations with my coach at the time, Todd Richards. He really, really gave it to me about how I practiced. Because again, I practice, to steal a line from Allen Iverson. But
Are we talking about practice?
yeah, I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. I didn't know what it meant to practice and how to be a pro And that first year in the American League, that's what that was about. That first year was about learning how to approach every day as a professional and get better and learn from my surroundings and be in better shape. I'm just thankful I had a second year on my deal, because if I didn't, I'm not sure I'd be where I am.
So what were you talk about practicing like a pro and approaching it. What were some of the things then you had to change?
I just had to work with a purpose in practice. You know, I still remember we had one drill where I was back checking the drill, but I didn't know that I was supposed to be a part of the drill. I was back checking it, but just kind of giving token pressure. And Connor James was the player I was back checking, and he walked me pretty good, but I didn't think anything of it. And I came back to the line, and Todd had asked me, like, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? What I back checked it?" He's like, "Well, like," and he kind of just stared at me like your dad would stare at you when you do something ridiculous. And I was like, "Well, do you want me to work harder?" And he, again, like a dad, as disappointed as possible, like, do you want to work harder? You haven't played in 3 weeks. You want to work harder? What the, he got right up in my face about it. And I didn't realize that being out of the lineup, I had to work to get back in. So we had a lot of these tough conversations. He even asked me if I was scared to play. And he never did it as a bully or as being mean, just honesty and honest questions that made me reflect on, what I was bringing to the table and how I had to change. And thankfully, he had those conversations with me. Otherwise, who knows? I might not have changed.
So what was the light bulb moment then when you went, "Oh, I get it"?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if there was a moment, that sticks out in my mind when I decided that I had to be better. Because I internally, I always never wanted to come home and be a washout. Like you're signing with the Penguins. You want to play with the Penguins. You want to prove people right. So I was always trying to take everything I could. Even those hard conversations, you got to change. But maybe some of the players with less pedigree, that were getting opportunities. We had a player, and I shouldn't even say less pedigree, but we had a player, Tyler Spurgeon. His brother plays in Minneapolis or Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah, but Tyler, I believe Tyler might have been the captain of Kelowna. A lot of the teams that have went on to Memorial Cups, and Tyler worked so hard, and he didn't exactly have the best skill set, but he got opportunities because he worked so hard. And I had so much respect for him, just that he never quit. Every drill it seemed like game 7. Like he put everything he had into it. And he may have even gotten a game in Edmonton. I'm not sure if he did. But he was somebody that they had told me, that when they had first got him, they didn't know if he'd pan out. They didn't know if they'd see anything. But that the way he practiced, he got an opportunity and he stuck around. And so I watched him for a while. I'm like, okay, I got to practice like this crazy guy. So you try and do that. You try and pick up off somebody who's getting opportunities for what they're doing, and eventually your work ethic becomes your habit. It just becomes the way you do things, and I had to learn a whole new habit system in developing, my skills around work ethic.
So what were some of the habits then that you changed? Like
just battling on pucks. Like you go into a corner trying to win a battle. You don't go in the corner one-handing, kind of gator arming it because you might get hit. You go into a corner with your teammate respecting him, but you're going in there to win a battle because you're going to get that same battle a dozen times in the next game. And it's the respect factor, and it's a way to earn it, and you're screening a goalie, you screen the goalie. You don't give the dog on the fire hydrant and get nothing in the way. You stand there and you screen them. You do everything in practice like you would do a game. You shoot the puck like you're going to score. You pass the puck hard. And I wasn't pushed that way. In the junior A, for sure I wasn't pushed that way. In college, it came too easy. In hockey, in my 2 or 3 years leading up to being in Wilkes-Barre, I didn't have enough adversity to teach me to change. It all came pretty easy, and that's why maybe it hit me a bit of a wall when I got there.
Well, and you faced your fair share of adversity in the next 3 years because you're in Wilkes-Barre, and you allude to or talk a little bit about Wheeling Nailers, the East Coast, one of the greatest team names ever. Um, that'll fizzle out a lot of players. And obviously you stuck with it. I'd listened to or read a quote in the paper about you that said year 4, you knew you either had to basically shit or get off the pot. Like it was either time to make the team or you're going to be a career minor leaguer. And I found that very interesting that you recognize that. And you've recognized it several different points in your career, to be honest, listening to you.
Yeah, well, I think that it's probably one of the skills that's helped me is I'm able to kind of read where you fit, where there's a need for something. I have no, I have no misgivings about what I am as a player or where I fit or who's where. Like I never thought that I was getting Sidney Crosby's job. I never thought I was getting Evgeny Malkin's job or Jordan Stahl's job, but there might have been a place to take the 12th forward or the 13th forward. So you had to find a way to not, in junior, I was the guy that stood I was in Steven Stamkos' spot. I was in Ovechkin's spot. I was teeing up one-timers and scoring a million goals. And then you do that and you do it in college. And to me, it's very obvious once you get to Pittsburgh and Wilkes-Barre, that's not your job anymore. You're not here to be that guy. You're here to fill a role on a team. And whether that's taking face-offs or eating a one-timer or, being a cheerleader, you're just here to fill a role. And you have to find that role that makes everything come together. But, you'll never hear me say that the coach, screwed me and didn't play me on the power play. Because how the hell are you going to play in the power play? Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. There's no room. You got to find a way to play somewhere else or you get moved on. So I never had an ego big enough to think that I belonged with those guys or that they should share their spotlight with me. I just knew that my role was to be one of the other guys, one of the soldiers that just went out there and tried to get some momentum before those guys could get back out there and score some goals.
Were you a guy who blocked shots back in junior and in college?
No, and I still suck at blocking shots. It's something I got to work on every day. And
who's the hardest guy who's shot a puck at you in the NHL then? Like, you're like, Jesus, that was a bolt of lightning.
Bufflin was always terrifying. Just the way their power play set up, he was scary. Johnny Boychuk scares the hell out of me because he doesn't look where he's shooting. Like Johnny Boychuk, he's tickling the rafters every time the puck comes to him. And his head is so buried that he doesn't care if you're in the way. Most guys got their head up, and if you're in the lane, they won't shoot it. He's just a guy that his head is buried, and he's going to put it through you. But the Charas of the world, you're in the lane, but you're not quite in the lane. So there's some guys that can really hammer it.
You want me to get in front of what?
Yeah, well, and I play with Matt Hendricks. He's one of my good buddies, and I mean, he played hockey the hard way. That guy got in front of everything, even to the point where I think Alex Goligoski blew his cup up.
Yeah.
And I played with Goose in Wilkes-Barre. He can't shoot the puck. So for him to blow up a cup, that just tells you how heavy everybody can shoot it now. It's everybody can shoot it. Everybody can rip it. And it's just the technology nowadays.
Hendricks, we got to see him here, and he was a guy who laid it on the line every night.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players I've ever played with because he's another guy that had no ego about him. He knew what his role was. Undersized guy, fought anybody. Didn't fight them well, but he fought them. And he got in front of every shot possible. And one of the best leaders. Really one of the best leaders. And he wasn't the guy that had to score goals to lead. He was a guy that just the way he played and the way he competed, he earned a voice. It didn't matter who else was in the room. And you could ask the Connor McDavids and Leons how much they respect him, and I bet their admiration would be through the roof.
Well, and I think as fans, you see that. I think it's very easy to see.
Yeah, well, and I hope so. He deserves it, and I think he's now the, we kind of go back and forth on text message and whatnot, but he's a player development guy now with the Wild, and there couldn't be a better person for that organization to be talking to your prospects about how to carry themselves as a pro. And in my opinion, Edmonton and Winnipeg and some of those organizations really lost something when they let him go.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I know, well, a guy who's beloved like that and plays the right way and puts 110% every shift of every game he plays. Those are the players you like watching. You go back to the old Oilers when Marchand is scoring those goals and they were blue collar team. They had a lot of those players, a lot of those guys who just bled out everything they had every single game. And, going back to the heyday of them in Dallas, it's what they were up against. They were up against a superstar team that was going to eventually win a Stanley Cup, and they were the team in the way that beat the living crap out of them every night.
Give you an idea, too, of Matt and what he meant to that room. So in that playoff series, or, when we made the playoffs, which in and its own is tough to – the time we made the playoffs, Matt wasn't playing, just the way the lineup was. But we as a leadership group had kind of gone in there and talked to Todd about having him dress for warm-ups, which I'm telling you right now he was probably 35 at the time. To be a guy dressing for warm-ups, it's not a badge of honor. It's almost kind of not embarrassing, but you're not going to play, so you give it to somebody else and you let that older guy stay at home for the extra little bit or whatever. But we needed him in the room just before the game. That's all we needed him for. That's how much he meant to the team that we went and we asked if he, and we asked him, because that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow. You got to accept the fact that you're not playing. But he did it. He came in before every game, put the gear on, came out for warm up. And he was the guy that kind of, settled things down at times. He'd go through the locker room, he'd bang everybody on the shin pads, say something goofy to him, get him into the game. And, the game would start, he'd hit the showers. And nobody ever hears that. Nobody ever knows that he was a guy in that locker room that really, when you talk about glue, like true glue guys that had the ear of everybody, and at the time he just wasn't playing, but still everybody respected everything he had to say and everything he meant to that group.
That's a good story, man. That almost gives me chills thinking about that. Like it's unreal that you wanted him that bad in the room before. Like that's a high badge of honor for any person, let alone hockey player.
Well, and again, credit to him and his makeup. He didn't have 1 ounce of pride get in the way. He said, yeah, if you guys want me in there, I'll do it. I'll throw the gear on. And he acts like a crazy person. Even it's probably killing him inside that he's not playing. His team's in the playoffs, and that guy in the playoffs, I mean, he'd love it. So for him to swallow whatever pride he had and come in and just be what we needed him to be, I think that's the true definition of a teammate. It had nothing to do with Matt. It had everything to do with the Oilers. And, I'll always remember that about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, just put yourself in his shoes. I mean, it's you got to get dressed to make everybody else, like get your team going. But you ain't going to see a shift and the building's rocking and you can just like feel the energy, right? Like, man, half of us you'd have to lock the doors to make sure we didn't go out and just hop on the bench.
Yeah, and and I make it sound, maybe that we were a group of dead bodies not excited to play that needed Matt to fire us up. But he was part of the equation.
I don't think that's at all what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying, right? He's just a part of the puzzle. And if you could have had a 13th forward, he would have been the 13th forward. It would have just been that easy. I get exactly what you're saying. I think any hockey player who's played completely understands what you're saying. That's a guy you want in the locker room when it's game 7 and, it's win or die, and he's going to go to the wall for you.
Yeah, no, it's one of the all-time team guys, and I wish at the time, he got more credit for it. And I mean, he went to Winnipeg, and they fell in love with him there enough that they, at the trade deadline, he played in Winnipeg. They loved him. He had an opportunity to go home, play in Minnesota, and it wasn't working out in Minnesota for whatever reason. I mean, it tells you what kind of guy he is. Winnipeg, they threw Minnesota a 7th-round pick at the deadline. And they brought Matt back just to be a leader for the stretch, just to come in. I think he played a handful of games maybe, but they gave him a 7th-round pick at the deadline. Nobody talked about the trade, but Winnipeg decided they needed him to fix their room before the playoffs. That's what kind of person he is. So he's left a pretty good legacy in the game.
That's super cool. I want to, switching subjects, I'm curious on how walking onto the ice with Crosby and Malkin and Letang and the list goes on, what that was like. You spend your time and your days in the A, and you're learning lessons and you're getting better. You're building your habits. You're starting to maybe scratch the surface of getting into the NHL, and then you finally do. And what was that first stint of 10 games back in, what would that be, 2009-10 season? What was that like, getting called up, rolling into practice? Like, okay, I'm finally starting to taste this a little bit, and I got a little bit of confidence rolling, most likely.
Yeah, fun thing is, in those 10 games, I don't think I practiced once. The cap world. We're
Right.
living in a cap world. You don't stay up because they don't pay you. So they just bring you up for the game and they drive you back to Wilkes-Barre. So I was coming in for a morning skate and a game every time. There was no practice. So, but the familiarity I had, at least Dan Bilesman was my head coach in the American League. So I had already had that familiarity by the time he was in Pittsburgh. So getting the call up, at least I had that. I had a handle on the systems. I had a handle on the language they were using. So I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff, but it's always intimidating going into those locker rooms. But again, those Pittsburgh teams I first played on, they had some of the best people in the room, and it's no mystery to me why they won Stanley Cups. Like Bill Guerin, I mean, he's the best, like the best.
How so?
Just come talk to you like you've been a 10-year teammate, give you the time of day, ask you how you're doing. Hey, do you need anything? Hey, we're going out to dinner. Come with us. Like just the best.
Made you feel welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And he wasn't the only one. There was, Pascal Dupuis was like that. And, Hal Gill and Jay McKee, like there was a lot of guys like that. And to me, the guys like Sid, they followed that lead. We at the CBA, we got our own rooms. So if you weren't on an entry level deal, you got your own room. And Sid certainly had earned his own room on the road, but he wanted to be around Pascal Dupuis, so they got joining rooms everywhere on the road. And I think when you're surrounded by good people and good leadership, it rubs off. It has to. And Sid to this day, he's great. And he never treated me less than, never ever. And I always respect that about him. They gave me the time of day. And when I was on the power play, there was no bitching. They passed me the puck like anybody else. They just went about their business. And then, we went to dinners together. Everybody was included. And that's one of the best things is, whenever we got to a city, didn't matter who you were, the text went out, this is where dinner was, and you were coming. So I went to dinner wherever dinner was, and my entire first year I never paid. Always, 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 either Sid or Evgeny would pick up my tab. Always. And never paid my first year.
That's pretty cool.
It's amazing. He's younger than me.
But he's Sid the kid.
He's 2 years younger than me. He can't be paying for me. He's my little brother. No, but it was the best. And right away from there, you get it. You get some experience like that, and now that I'm older in the league, you get it. because that kid is so wide-eyed looking at you. He doesn't want to talk to you. If you just take him for breakfast, take him for dinner, talk to him like a person, he feels like he's part of the team. Feels like he belongs, and it goes a long way in building, that team camaraderie and certainly chemistry.
They always talk about being from Edmonton country. They always talk about, and by always, I mean, I've heard the stories of them back in the heyday of the Oilers talking about coffee and them picking up guys and lending them vehicles and just making them feel welcome immediately and going out of their way to do that.
No, and to be honest, my time in Edmonton, those guys were still around a lot. So and if there's one thing those guys like to do, it's tell a story. So the stories they would tell are 100% true. Like you're saying that, Kevin Lowe had 2 cars. A new guy was in town. Here's my car. It's yours. Take it until you get on your feet. You're not living at the hotel. You're coming to my house. They would that's what they did. And the sooner you get guys feeling like they're part of the group, the sooner you're going to play like a team. And by them taking care of each other, you can tell, obviously, the proof's in the pudding. But, you wish that more teams and more guys, adopted that kind of philosophy.
Well, I think that's what makes teams special, though, isn't it? That's what makes the best teams, right? Is that mentality.
Well, yeah, I think if everybody had those stories, it wouldn't bring pause to you and me like it does. I think
no, it's rare.
Yeah, it's special, and those guys, you can tell still the love and admiration they have for each other. I think anytime you talk to Wayne, he'll tell you Grant's the best goalie ever, and Paul's the best defenseman ever. Like they don't. It's not lip service. Like they believe that about each other. Like they believe everything they say, and they have such high esteem for each other and the teams they played on.
Do you remember the first NHL building you played in, your first NHL game? Like your first regular season game when you got called up? Was it in Pittsburgh then?
In Pittsburgh. I actually got called up previous to that. So I got called up in Columbus. I got flown in for the game. Sid was sick. So we didn't know if he was going to play. So I got to take warm-up. I had to take warm-up, do my laps and chin strap undone. And so I got to take warm-ups in Columbus. Cannon scared the shit out of me. I had all the Columbus experiences, but I didn't get to play in that one. Got to do my workout, and then in true Cap era, you get sent immediately home so they don't have to pay you. And then, about a week or two later, I got called up to play Boston, and that was pretty cool.
Anything you recall about the game? Did you line up taking a draw against Bergeron or of the like?
No, I don't. The things I remember about the game is it was crazy scoring, and then in warm up, it was like, holy shit, Zdeno Chara is big, and holy shit, Andrew Ference is small. Like that was the two things that stick out to me. Is they're not all huge, but that's huge, and they're not all bigger than me because that's tiny. So it was good to get out there and finally see them in the flesh and not in person. But I think we won maybe or lost or won. I'm not even sure. It was like 7-6 in overtime or in the shootout or something. It was just one of those shit show games where the puck just wouldn't stop going in.
How about your first goal?
Buffalo. First shift.
Yeah.
First shift, the baby blue uniforms. Yeah, Tyler Kennedy with a backdoor 3-on-1. That to me was the moment for me that was like I made it moment. I think the game was cool. You get that first NHL game, but to actually score, like to be on the score sheet, to have a goal, to you can YouTube my first goal. You can't YouTube somebody's first game. You have a highlight. You're in it. You're on it. So for that was awesome. That was probably one of the hardest I've ever screamed about something in my life. So that was really cool. I could just about tell you everything about that goal. It was a lot of fun, especially the first shift to get it out of the way. It was great. I don't know what Dan had me doing starting a game either, but I was.
It worked. Yeah, hey, he probably took the credit for that. I knew. Well, how about the playoffs? The year Pittsburgh wins the cup, you get to play a few games in that run, correct?
No, I missed it. I
Did
missed
you
it
miss
by
it?
I
Missed it
missed
by a
it.
year?
Yeah. So I didn't even get to Black Ace. A lot of my buddies that played with Wilkes-Barre got to Black Ace, and I just missed it. Uh, and it disappointed in myself that I missed it too, because had I had that first year in the American League, I was a little better. They might have brought me along. So I missed out on it, and I got to play the following year when PK Subban had stepped on Jordan Stahl's foot.
When he stepped on his foot. That's right. Okay,
So
okay.
that's when I got back in, and I got an assist against Montreal in a playoff game. Uh,
How about going to Montreal? That must have been something for you.
yeah, it's the coolest thing, especially as a Canadiens fan. Even now, you go there and like that. The volume's on 11 for a Wednesday night in November. Like it's so loud, and even when their teams aren't that good, they're loud, and the pregame ceremonies, the music, the pageantry of it all. Just being a fan, that's where I get the goosebumps. I'm on the bench, I'm playing against these guys, and they got the Coldplay going, and they're coming out, and the guy's screaming in French. You don't know what he's saying, but it just sounds cool. It's a really really fun place to play.
You were mentioning the Cannons, and I was thinking. I'm going back to Columbus now. I'm jumping here, but I was thinking, of all the different intricacies of how buildings kind of get their fans going. Columbus's Cannon might be one of the cooler ones. You've got to play and hear that an awful lot. Is there another one in there that sticks out like that you're like, you talk about Montreal and Volume 111 and all the history there. But is there another building that you just sticks out? Like Vegas now has a pretty cool little pregame going to it, and when they're in the playoffs, that's on 11. Like that is on next level. Is there something else that sticks out to you in the NHL?
Yeah, Vegas has a really cool atmosphere. It's new. They did it right. They've got it feels like Vegas when you're there. So they've identified the right thing. But I think as an NHL fan, every single fan needs to go to the Madhouse on Madison and be there for the American national anthem. There is nothing louder, and I'm not even American. I get chills about it. They cheer from the start of the American national anthem to the end. And it gets louder and louder. It's one of the coolest things that our sport does, and I think as any fan, you got to go experience it. It's whether it's the mixture of the organ and the singer and the fans. It's uniquely Chicago, and it's uniquely Blackhawks, and I look forward to it every time I play there.
Oh, yeah, Chicago would be good. Chicago is, well, another original six, right? Like, I mean, and they got the name the Madhouse. I mean, you don't get that name for no reason, right? Like there's a lot going on there, a lot of history. One of my good friends from college that I graduated with is from Chicago, and yet I've never made it to a Blackhawks game. So in other
They,
words, what you're
they just
saying is I got to get there.
Yeah, they do it right, and it never gets old. They got the stranglehold coming out and the red lights, and just the whole everything's just uniquely Chicago. And when you're there, you're playing the Hawks, and the first period's always they're as fired up about the anthem too, because they're usually running it down your throat for the first 10 minutes.
In your career, who's the best coach you've had? Who's the one that sticks out as like either he taught you? We've talked about a couple different ones in your pro days. Um, but is there a coach that taught you a lesson early on or later on that sticks out to you and you just, that really sticks out, I guess?
Yeah, if they ever hear this, they were all great, and I may need a job down the line. So if you have a spot on your staff, no, they've all been. I've learned something from everybody. Uh, I've spent the most time with Todd Richards, so I had him in Wilkes-Barre as a minor leaguer, as a kid who didn't know how to practice, um, and had a lot of hard lessons. I remember almost being in tears leaving his office a couple times because he asked honest questions that I didn't have answers to, that he had to go home and really think about. And then when I get traded to Columbus, he was he was the assistant coach at the time. So right away, I'm like, oh shit, not this again. But I had matured as a player quite a bit. Like I remember playing in Wilkes-Barre, and he'd call me in the summer, and I'd screen it. Like, I'm not talking to this guy. Like, I'm scared of him. So when I got to Columbus and he was there, our relationship changed. Assistant coach to player. I was a different player. I had different habits. And he could see it, and he respected it. And I'm sure he even gave, me a good review. But then he got to take over as the head coach. And that's when my career really seemed to jump. Because I think he had seen what I'd gone through, how I'd made adjustments, how I'd changed. And I even, the lockout shortened year, I led the Blue Jackets in goal scoring that year. So as him as the head coach, I got put in just about every position: power play, penalty kill, even strength. And I had my best years under him. So he's a guy that, for whatever reason, had really tough times, but I had my best times with him too.
That's an interesting, that is something that has come up on this podcast an awful lot, is the coach that you go through the struggles with, but he sees the growth, is usually a coach that believes in you down the road. And the fact that you got traded to Columbus, I hadn't really put that together, that he was there. And you wonder, the immediate thought I have as soon as I hear that is you wonder if they went and talked to him about you, which I assume they would have. And the fact they made the trade for you, you got to think his input was in there already.
It might have been, and that's something you find out in the hockey world, how truly small it is. Because I'm sure he put in a call to Dan before they traded for me to ask, because I don't think the trigger gets pulled immediately. I think these trades, they get talked about for a while. They do some background research. And then, of course, I sign in Edmonton while Todd was on Todd McClellan's staff in San Jose. So there's connections everywhere.
Yeah.
Even now, Winnipeg, Jay Woodcroft was the assistant coach in Edmonton. His brother, Todd Woodcroft, was the assistant coach in Winnipeg. I'm sure they talked, so I think the importance of not burning bridges and treating people well and giving that particular team or coach your best at all times, it serves you well, down the road.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice for any walk of life.
Yeah, you never know, right? When I need a job, guys, job soon.
I got one thing to ask before we go into the final segment here. And this is probably a tough subject for Oiler fans, probably a tough subject for you. But Kessler grabbing Talbot's pad in game, oh boy, now I'm forgetting. Is that game 5? Game 5.
Game 5.
Game 5. Was that a tough pill to swallow?
Yeah.
Because I know you're gonna sit there and go, well, we had to win a game, and you're gonna give the hockey player hand. But when you look back at that video, it's like, man, how did they miss that one? Like that should have been called back.
I think it's interference. I 100% think it's interference. For me, the worst part of reliving all that is I feel like if I got a little better hand, I get that puck out at the blue line.
At the blue line, yep.
Even I watch back and they're like, Letestu can't get it out. Like that. That sucks. But that puck's bouncing. If I'm just a little better with it, you get it out, and we're not having this conversation. But to me, that's the part of it that sucks. But yeah, there's interference there. There's no doubt that he's hanging on to him. But I hate the rule altogether. I hate instant replay. I think it's terrible. I'd rather you just lose or you just make a bad call. I hate the offside replays. I get why they do it, but in getting the call right is what everybody says, but I enjoy the human side of it. I enjoy occasionally having a missed call. And as we've seen, as we're talking about, they don't get it right. So,
you got the game's so fast. You got the human error of just refs being able to see everything. You got 4 guys out there trying to do the best they can. But then you got like instant replay that can break it down into like fraction of seconds of toes crossing lines, kind of, and everybody's kind of staring at the screen going, is that, isn't that? And that's where I think for a lot of people are like, man, just this is better 10 years ago when it was just, Brett Hull was in the crease, they score, they win, you're mad about it, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, and I think there's a kind of a phenomenon happening now in our game, especially if you're watching at home. Every time there's a play, coaches are looking down because they're trying to see the screens.
Yeah.
Players are looking at their shifts on iPads. And I think that players are losing the ability to actually think about what they're doing on the ice, because they have to make decisions in real time and you're thinking about it out there, but you should be able to see it. But now you don't have to see it because you come back and you look at it on your screen and you're like, you know what, that guy probably could have been there. That's not my fault. He wasn't open. Or where I just think players got to be a little more critical and really understand what they're doing out there. But guys are rushing to get back to the bench, and same thing, rewind, and then, you were open, or did you see me there? Like, no, I'm the 12th forward. I didn't see you there. Like, but on video, like, it's pretty clear. And I just think at times we overanalyze what's going on out there, and the videos become such a big part that you just got to enjoy the game and read and react.
When you look back so far, hopefully you get a few games here in playoffs. We get to watch you again. But when you look back at your career, what's one of your fondest moments? Like, what sticks out to you? Is it the playoff run in Edmonton, or is there something else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. The playoff run in Edmonton's awesome. I got more points than Connor McDavid does in the playoffs right now. So I'm better than him. Ha!
Bazinga.
That was the best hockey I've ever played. And I loved every second of it because I really shoved it up a lot of people's asses, because when I got put on the power play, like, what? Why? So for me, that was, I still remember, because I listen to the radio sometimes, and they get their morning show in Edmonton, and Rashog, is just ripping it. Just like, I don't think this Letestu experiment's going to work. I don't see it. And, the next day after I put 2 in against Winnipeg, he's like, well, I was wrong. I was obviously incredibly wrong. And I took a lot of satisfaction in that. And it just kept going, kept scoring, kept having a good year, and was a really big part of that power play. So for me, that was huge. That was proving a lot of people wrong and showing people that I had the ability to be there. Although when things kind of went sour the next year, all those people popped up again and said, see? So they win, I guess. And then making the Jets this year. I think when you endure a year in the minors and you question if you can still do it, to come to camp and earn a job again, that was really satisfying as well.
Going back to you playing on the power play, that was fun to watch. That was really fun to watch. I remember when you got put there, and I'm like, I'm always the glass half full. Obviously the coach sees something, right? Like, I'm not at practice. Let's see what happens. And it felt like every time the puck went in, it was, and there's Letestu again popping it in. Isn't that funny? It's working. And it was fun to watch that power play.
Well, and I think it goes to show that it's, I have no, fantasies about being, in the top 5 players that should be on the power play. But I think it goes to show that power plays and teams need ingredients. There's certain things. I think you see some power plays, they put the 5 best players on the ice and it just doesn't look right. There's just not enough puck for 5 guys that want it. In that situation, I didn't need it. I'm there to finish. I'm there to shoot the puck. Of all those 5 guys on the ice, nobody's really a shooter, or wasn't at the time. Leon wasn't what he is now. And they were bent on having a right-handed shot. So I knew when the puck came to me to shoot it. So there was plenty of puck for Leon and Connor to have, and I knew my role. And I think it's just sometimes it's the ingredients, that make the power play what it is. And again, guys accepting roles and knowing what it is that they have to do.
Well, and grabbing an opportunity and running with it. Because there was
right
other guys get put on that power play and it didn't work.
Yeah, no, and it's something I've always had that I play on the power play ever. I played in Pittsburgh, played in Columbus. It's just something I'm good at. It's like the shootout. I remember a reporter asking me why they thought, was I surprised that I went? And I was like, no, I'm good at them. Like, look at my numbers. Like, it's like 40%, and
Cash
so
money.
sometimes you got to give a stupid answer for a stupid question.
What was the what was the dumbest question you've been asked by a reporter?
Oh, the poor guy was here in Columbus. I got traded from Edmonton to Columbus, and Pierre-Luc Dubois was here. He's a young player. He's 18. And the poor guy, he asked me if I'd ever played with anybody that young, with that much, like that had done that much, like he had that much impact on a game. And the poor, like, I'm like, I just came from Edmonton. Connor McDavid. Like hello. But he was trying to make his guy, and PLD is he's a good player.
Oh yeah,
But the poor
absolutely.
guy he just didn't know. It's in one of those markets where he didn't know, and he asked the question. I had to kind of look around, and so I gave him the answer. I said, yeah, just came from there. He's better.
Well, we've been going now, I think, for about an hour and a half, roughly that. So time is flying by. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I do a final segment, the Crude Master Final Five. So shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald. They've been sponsors of the podcast since the very beginning. So a huge shout out to them. Just 5 questions, quick or short as you like. If you could look back and pick your line mates, you could hop back on a line that you've played on. What line would you go back to playing on?
Zach Cassian and Matt Hendricks, two of my best buddies that I played with. We have a picture. We were beating the shit out of the Flames one night. We had all had points, and Cass, his personality's starting to come through, like with people in Edmonton. You can tell they love him. But he had the cameraman who sits in between the bench take a picture of us. The play's going on, but we posed like we were posing for anything. We opened up, and all 3 of us down the bench took a picture. And it's those 2 guys, they mean a lot to me. So I'd play on that line again for sure.
Yeah, we all remember Cassian in the playoffs. He was a treat to watch.
He's the best. He's the best.
Do you not drink coffee? Did I read that?
I started when I turned 33, and I haven't looked back. I go heavy coffee now. Full on addiction.
What was the turning point? What turned you on to coffee? You just decided one day maybe I'll try one?
No, the American Hockey League. You go back at 33, you're going to start trying some stuff. So I had some early mornings. I was driving back so I live about two hours from Cleveland. So I was driving back and forth every morning. I'd get up at 6:30, get in the car and drive my 2 hours down 71 to practice. So I needed some coffee.
Well, in that case, if you could have coffee with one guy, one person, whoever it is, who would it be? Sit and pick their brain.
I'd love to talk to Bob Cole again. That's one of my favorite moments, is being an NHL player. I grew up on him, like most of us did. Listened to him call games, and for him to come in and interview me and then call a goal of mine, that's the coolest thing ever for a hockey player. So I think to pick his brain about what he's gone through, and some of the stuff he's seen. He's a pretty funny guy, so I'm sure he's got some good stories, but he would be the guy to have coffee with.
Guaranteed he'd have some great stories.
The best stories.
That guy can call a hockey game. Whew.
Oh, he's still got it.
Yeah. What's the last song you jammed with your kids to? I just came from home. I got 3 kids under 4. Well, the oldest is just over 4, I guess. And I know the songs we jam out to. So what's the last song you had with your kids that has left an impression?
Mine are a little older, but it's I think it's Boom by the X Ambassadors. So it was on Sonic the Hedgehog the other day here. So we had that going, and then we put it in the car on the way to the baseball game. So they like that one. It gets them going. Dad doesn't mind it either.
I'll have to check it out. I always enjoy a little new music, and the kids, although they like Frozen and Moana and what other Disney movie you can pick, they do
Right.
enjoy other songs. I look forward to the days of where you're at.
Yeah, it's better. It's better.
You mentioned Netflix, a lot of Netflix and chill. What has been your show of choice in the last little bit?
Been married 10 years. It's just Netflix. The chill isn't there anymore, or just not as often. No, right now I'm trying to get back into Ozark. I haven't. I'm finishing Westworld, but I've been trying to read a lot of books. So I've been reading a lot of Stephen King. I finished The Outsider and then watched the series. So I just finished the next book on that, If It Bleeds. So I'm kind of buzzing through books here.
Stephen King.
Yeah, I got a dark side, so he seems to scratch that itch.
Final question for you, and this is gonna be a tough one, I suppose, for you, is McDavid or Crosby?
Oof. Probably Sid. And I just think at this point, even now, still Sid, he's so complete, and he continues to get better. And that's not trying to say that Connor's not what we think he is. He's generational, but I've seen Sid now for a long time, and to me, he's still the best. So he would be the guy that I just see him adjust. He wanted to shoot the puck better one year, so he decided to go away and shoot the puck, and he comes back with a great shot. But they're both. There's no bad answer.
No,
there's no wrong answer. I think if you're skating in a straight line, Connor's going to win that race. But if you're working along the wall, Sid's your horse all day.
I think 31 teams would gladly have either one of them, and that is right. There's nothing there. How many more years has Crosby got? How many more years can he play at the top level like he's doing?
I mean, if a schlub like me can make it till 35, he's got at least 2. So double that. He can go till he's 40. He keeps himself in great shape. If he can play as long as he wants. I don't see any part of his game that isn't there. He still keeps up, still shoots pucks, still smart. So he can play as long as he wants. But as long as he wants is probably the term that's most important. I mean, Nick Lidstrom could still be playing. But they just didn't want to anymore. Those guys, sometimes they just burn out. It's time to do something else.
Well, I've really appreciated you hopping on with me for a quick one or an interview here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I have a newfound respect for the town of Elk Point because we had, like I said to you before we started going, and shout out to Murray Cochran for hooking me up with your contact details and getting us hooked up so you could hop on. But for a lot of years, Hillmont and Elk Point seemed to meet each other in the playoffs every bloody year, and there was a lot of animosity between the two. So I really appreciate you hopping on and sitting and chatting with me. It's been a lot of fun.
No, this has been great. Let's do it again sometime.
Okay. Thanks again. Hey folks, thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.